Hello, you marvellous multifocals, and thank you to Willem Killian for that malt mention. I'm Ralphie, this is the Bothy, your malt mates, you're very welcome, and yeah, this is Ralphie Review 954, and I'm reviewing a very accessible, reasonably priced, good quality, consistently bottled, so no big batch variations, juicy, zesty, fresh, great quality single malt for you at a very accessible price. So if you're looking to buy a present for the end of the year, or for a birthday present, or a Christmas present, or a Diwali present, or whatever present, for someone who's just getting into whiskey and they don't have a lot of experience, but you're looking for something different, I'd like to recommend a Knock 12-year-old Scotch single malt whiskey. It's bottled at 40%, so minimum strength, but that's reflected in the price you're paying. It's a Speyside distillery from Annoch. Sorry, it's Annoch from Knockdhu Distillery. And there's an 18-year-old and there's a 24-year-old, and there are occasional special bottlings, for example, 16-year-old. And do you know, they're all good. Annoch do not bottle bad whiskey. There's the bottle. I'm bringing the bottle over so you can have a good, clear look at the label, malt mates. Because what you're looking at here is one of the most off-the-radar, invisible, quality single malt Scotch whiskies that nobody's ever heard of. And even quite a few folk who are well into their Scotch whiskies completely overlook this particular brand. And I really want to take this opportunity in this review to kind of put the record straight a little bit. I go back to Annoch occasionally because I enjoy the fact that whichever way it's packaged, whether it is chill filtered and maybe in my opinion, this has got some colourant in it. In my opinion. But at 40%, it's most certainly chill filtered. It is a generic brand presentation of the whiskey, but the reason for that's simple. It's the first one in the lineup of the range within the brand, and as such it's got to be the ambassador for people who are only occasionally buying whiskey. And you see the same formula repeated with some other distilleries where they have higher strength bottlings for the older stuff and the special small edition stuff, but their entry level basic brand is at 40% chill filtered and has some E150 in it. And a good example is Glencairn. And I really don't have a problem with that because at least there's transparency. You can see where the lie of the land is. And this is made all the better for the fact that there isn't any overt flanneling marketing. This isn't a whiskey that's pretending to be something that it's not. This isn't a whiskey where the brand overrides the content of the bottle. And I find that really skews the terminology. As regards a bottle of whiskey, I find that quite refreshing. So what we have here is something completely unpeated. It is a perfect example of a light style Speyside whiskey, which is not typical of the region. It's dry, it's crispy, it's fresh, fruity, zesty. So I'm going to give you the smell, I'm going to give you the taste, malt mates, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about this. First nose, you're thinking for a 40% whiskey, that's actually quite a lot going on in that nose. I'm getting apple. I'm getting some very mild bananas. I'm getting a hint of grape juice. Vanilla? Absolutely. In my opinion, predominant maturation is taking place in ex-bourbon casks. You get that slight sawdusty note as well. A little bit of touch of virgin oak, and I believe that in this batch, purely my opinion, malt mates, so just take it as it happens, I believe they're using some virgin oak wood to get extra zesty oakiness in to the signature coming from the stills, because it works. They're balancing this out really, really well. It develops vanilla and sultana, and it's a nice rich warm spiciness, nutmeg and allspice, and a little bit of coriander. There's something slightly savoury about this. Very engaging nose. Then we get to the taste. 40%, so you don't have to add water. But I will shortly, and I'll tell you why. A dry whisky. It reminds me slightly of Bailey Nickel Jarvie, one of the great iconic blended whiskies of the early 2000s, which has since disappeared. If you find it at auction, buy a bottle of Bailey Nickel Jarvie, because it is a very singular blend, and there's not a lot of these styles of blends left these days. Very clean in the palate, slightly grassy, hay, green, slightly menthol, slightly minty. Starts to remind you of what a new generation of Irish whiskies should be tasting like if they want to stamp their character back onto the landscape of Ireland. I'm going to add a drop of water now. You can have it neat if you want to. You'll have a really good positive experience. Clean, fresh, zesty, no cask overload, no heavy finishes, a really traditional, balanced, underrated, overlooked single malt. Whether you're just getting out in whiskey, just starting in whiskey, or whether you're quite experienced and you're just looking for a fun single malt to see you into the new year, see, for the price, you can't go wrong. I'm adding 2 millilitres of water, so not a lot. Reason being, it's already at 40%. So you don't need to add much. And if you do add too much, it's just going to get over dilute and it will kill the signature. So back to the nose. It's a younger whiskey, 12 years old, so whatever response the whiskey will make from having the water added is going to happen sooner rather than later. Adding a drop of water sweetens the nose. It brings out a soft, almost icing sugar, subtle sweetness on the nose, which kind of balances off the assertiveness of the bitter and the sour, and the assertiveness of the sensation range in this signature. Beautifully clean in the nose, really fresh, zesty, almost sherbety. Tangy, very clean, hits the side of the mouth. Apple, grape juice, real crispiness. You know, think of a green apple. That's what you're thinking of, green apples. But there's something slightly russety as well. A soft toffee note, which is adding to the complexity even within the arrival before the development starts. As the development starts, something almost slightly floral, but then it goes herbaceous. I like basil, thyme, these sort of aromatic herbs you use in Italian cuisine. Rosemary, yep, a little touch of that. And something that I very rarely see in modern whiskies, and that's bay leaf. Now, if you want to scrunch up on a bay leaf, proceed with caution. It is a huge flavour experience. I've done it several times myself, actually, just munched on a bay leaf. And it's also, by the way, slightly narcotic. So, easy how much you go on when it comes to munching bay leaf leaves. A huge amount of flavour. Almost reminiscent, actually, of eucalyptus. The nose is softening. And one of the reasons it's softening is in response to the assertive flavour. As the nose softens, the flavour grows. It's quite remarkable. I wouldn't say it's unusual. It happens a lot in whisky, but you really, really notice it here. Oh, really coming into its own. The toffee note is growing. Rich, slightly barley sugar. Toffee morphing into barley sugar, herbaceous, slightly fennel, so a hint of licorice in the background, but you're getting basil, you're getting sage, definitely, these savoury herbs, and it's lingering. And it sustains, because it's clean, because it's fresh, because this is spirit driven, and you don't have any cask suppression going on from over influence of previous contents, whether it be bourbon or sherry. The finish, clean, apple, crisp, mild vanilla, absolutely beautiful. This is a very underrated single malt, and I want to finish off this review by giving you an extra reason, a very, very important reason, malt mates, why this single malt is so underrated. And that is because of the consistency over the years of the bottlings throughout the age range. The consistency in Anok is second to none. I can only think of one other Speyside distillery which is as consistent, not just over the years but over the decades, and that is Glenfiddich. There's something about light, fresh, zesty, floral, herbaceous whiskies that the whisky makers, I wouldn't say they find it easy, but they find it less challenging to maintain a consistency. One of the reasons that this brand also maintains consistency is lack of demand. Anok always tends to be the bridesmaid at an event and never the bride. As I'm saying, overlooked and underrated, and even if you're just getting started into whisky and you've got your bottle of Glenfiddich and Glenmorangie, and perhaps a bottle of Bowmore, something generic, something that you'll get off the shelf of a supermarket, and you're wondering where to go next, but you don't want any of these massive roller coaster, volcanic maelstrom big single malts like Laphroaig and Mortlach and Glentochers. I tell you what, this is the bottle you should be looking out for. And as I mentioned earlier, in the UK, you can buy this bottle for under £35. And that, at this moment in time, is very, very good value. What am I going to malt mark this at? It's got to be a good one. But inevitably, it's being held back by the presentation. It is chill filtered. It has quite possibly got a little bit of colourant added. Have a quick gander at the container here, see if it says anything. I can't see anything jumping out at me, which it should be doing. No, there we go. 85 out of 100, and that is a very respectable malt mark. I suspect actually that for Ralphie regulars in my channel, you say, hey Ralphie, that's not a great mark. It can't be such a great whisky. Considering all the whiskies you score 90 out of 100, this can't be so good. And the answer is that marks, whoever allocates them in whatever context, are only and ever subjective. It's all very well for me, who's been drinking whisky for over 30 years, that I can give big marks to really big whiskies, but sometimes it's not a big whisky we're looking for. It's not something that is going to assault our senses, no matter how delightful the experience. Sometimes we're just looking for an accessible, amenable, delightful, honest, fresh, lovely made, traditionally made whisky, which is absolutely sparkling. And that's what a Knock does, whether it be a 12-year-old, 18-year-old or a 24-year-old, and they're affordable too. What more could we ask for? Anyway, that's me done with this Ralphie review. If you want to pop back for my extras, I shall be talking about buying yourself a present. Yeah, buying yourself a present, how you go about it. Because at this time of year, because this video is going up in November 2022, we're looking to buy our next bottle of whiskey, and we're probably in the mood to buy something that we wouldn't usually go for. So how do you go about doing that? And if you want to know, malt mates, you're going to have to join me for Ralphie Review 954 Extras. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this, click the likey, leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed, well, why don't you? Because it means that you won't miss out on the mall moments. Bye.